Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. This is the second video in my modern homestead gardening series, Becoming More Self-Sufficient. And today's video is really about getting started. We are going to cover planting herbs. There's peppermint there, oregano, sage, chives, lemon balm. The best way to learn, it's great to watch videos, read books and stuff like that, but the best way to learn is to get started. These are perennial herbs, which mean they come back year after year, and they're really, really hardy. And you can see some of the mint over there to the left, the lemon balm up there. It's pretty beat up because I actually left these out too long. They dried out, they got beat up. But it's almost hard to fail growing these. It's possible, but it's hard. These are really, really hardy. And perennials mean, again, that they come back year after year. So once you plant these in places that get freezing winters, they'll die back and they're going to come back. So once they're started, you're going to be able to harvest these year after year after year. Now this is my container garden section. I'll be talking about cool weather crops and warm weather crops in future video episodes. Have some peas in. You can plant in large whiskey barrels. You can plant in fabric pots. If you are on a budget, ask family, friends, people for their nursery pots when they put plants out. You can grow in those. Those are small. And you can see that there's different size containers. One of the keys for container gardening is really matching the size of the root system and plant with the right container. Now, for these plants, you need something about that size. That's probably 3 or 4 gallons worth of material, which is basically potting mix. So for this first video, I want you to go and pick out some potting mix. It'll say potting mix on the bag. You can get it at Amazon. You can go to any store. I have links in my video description if you need help getting the fertilizers and the potting mix. But the key is potting mix. And when you're planting containers, you want it to have at least 50% peat moss, which is typically what's in there, because it holds water. The whole key to container gardening is matching the size of the container with the plant and having a growing medium, potting mix, that holds water. So make sure you get potting mix. And the reason I said it about 9 times is when you go to the garden center, you're going to see all kinds of different products, bag products labeled, topsoil, garden soil, raised bed soil, all that kind of stuff. It's confusing. Look for container mix or potting mix. That's what you want. And then go ahead and pick up, you can still find them now, some peppermint, different kinds of mint, maybe a couple of herbs, and again real quick, chives. To the left in the black container, that's thyme, peppermint, sage, oregano. We're going to plant those. So you're going to get the potting mix. You're going to find a container that's about that size right there, and we're only going to plant 1 mint plant per pot. For the herbs of thyme, oregano, sage, chives, you can get something bigger. That's about a 10-gallon pot. You can plant those herbs together, but mint is really, really invasive, and it will take over. So you only want 1 mint plant per pot. While you're there, you're also going to pick up any water-soluble fertilizer. Pick whatever fits your budget, and any granular type organic fertilizer. So you're going to pick up a granular fertilizer somewhere with an NPK rating, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, around a 5.55. Just try and get that. If it's a 7.42 or a 3.64, don't worry about it. The granular fertilizer is basically granules. It's dry. That's what we're going to mix into the container mix, the potting mix, when we plant. And then the water-soluble fertilizer is what we feed the plants every 7 to 21 days with. Organic fertilizer that's granular is a slow release, so it slowly breaks down over time and feeds back and feed your plants. The water-soluble fertilizers are immediately available to your plant. They mix with water, you put them into a watering can, you feed the plant can use the nutrients right away. So you're going to pick up some plants, container, potting mix, granular fertilizer, and water-soluble fertilizer. All right, let me get this set up for planting. All right, now we're keeping this simple, so we're not going to make any special container potting mix. Just buy it from a store, get started. A lot of that will have fertilizer in it. That's great, but we're also going to put some of the granular on top and water it in with that water soluble I was talking about. For containers, something that's really important is that they need to have drainage holes. So you don't want a container that fills up with water. That will rot the plant roots and your plants are going to suffer. So fabric pots normally drain, and then all my other containers, there's an example down there, have holes in it, either flat on the bottom or up an inch. If you go up an inch on the side, if you're in really hot climates, that kind of creates a little bit of a water reserve and helps with watering. One of the keys to having a successful container garden is to make sure you water regularly, and sometimes twice a day, when the heat of the summer is here. Now, it's we're entering the second week of September here, so all these perennial herbs can go in now. The roots will establish, have a good 90 days before the hard freezes come, and these will pop back come spring, and I'm going to be able to harvest mint, lemon balm, chives, thyme, oregano, all the different herbs. So this whole kind of episode is really about getting your hands dirty and getting something growing. All the technical stuff and variations I explain in my book. I'll also explain in the series, but today I just want you to get something growing. Herbs are great. They're the perennials, and then when you grab the leaves, they have wonderful scents. They can really help you feel motivated to keep going, and you're going to have success. So basic setup in a flower box like that, just so you can have some idea size-wise, that's going to be one mint plant, and that will fill up the whole box. And they are really, really hard to kill. For example, this is my thyme plant in a little tiny clay pot that has been neglected. It's coming back now because the heat of the summer went away and I've been watering it more. But this was neglected. We get, 20-degree nights here in January and February that froze through, and the thyme still survives. This is a 2-year-old plant, so it's gone through a winter or two. In this bigger container, here's the size of my hand to give you an idea, and this is probably 8 to 10 gallons. We're going to do a mint plant here and a sage plant there. Now, mint will take over this whole container, but sage gets taller, so you want to kind of balance. If I had something that was low growing with the mint's going to cover it, it's going to kill it off. So that's a combination that works. Over here are the kind of standards that I like for my container garden that's near my kitchen. Chives, come back every year. Oregano, thyme. 10-gallon pot. Pop them into the corners. Well, there's no corners in a circle, but you know what I mean. Pop them in there, and these will come back year after year after year. So let's just set this up with the fertilizers, and I'll pop the plants in. All right, so you have your container. The container has holes in it or it drains. You bought your potting mix or your container mix. They're the same thing. Make sure you get that. Now, to set it up, and if you want to subscribe, this is going to be about a 12-part series. I will go over in more detail how to start oregano from seed, for instance. You'll save a lot of money. But for now, in the fall, we're just doing transplants that we purchased. Because it's the fall and we're growing into winter, there's not going to be a lot of need to fertilize. So we're going to just set this up in a nice basic way. And I have my fertilizer. That's a handful, maybe 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons, just something like that is all you need. Now, this is a 3-5-4, 3 nitrogen, 5 NP, 5 phosphorus, and 4 potassium. That's close enough to the 5-5-5. This is also organic, but I don't want you to worry about organic fertilizers right now or the synthetic chemical types. Chemical fertilizers, which you hear a lot about, they do not harm you and they do not harm your plants. They're not great for soil biology if you use them in a crazy way over and over again. We'll talk more about that in depth in future videos. Handful down there, just mix it in, 4 inches or so. We know that the plant is fed, they're good to go. Pop out your transplant, nothing fancy. We're going to take it right to here, same depth that it is in the container. You don't have to be gentle, press it in. Now you have oregano. You'll have oregano for years. Chives, really tight root ball, smells like onions when you break them. Break these up a little bit. This way the roots will start growing in different directions. Scratch the sides. And we're dropping this in. Same way. And then thyme. No need to really break this up. You could scratch it a little bit if you want. Now you've got 3 herbs you'll use regularly. This is a great way to get started gardening. You don't have to do anything super technical. Container, potting mix, plants, and then I like to use fish emulsion. That's a 5-1-1 NP&K, and I would just water this in once. Again, because it's the fall, we're going into the winter. I'm not worried about these really growing lots of greenery. I just want the roots to establish. But when the plants are small, you fertilize with a water soluble every 3 to 4 weeks. When they get larger, maybe every 2 weeks. If you're in doubt, every 2 weeks is perfectly fine. There's no exact measures that you have to do with fertilizing. Just follow the instructions that are on here. If you do buy the chemical fertilizers that have like a high nitrogen, like 24, cut it in half. Don't use the full dosage. You just need low NP and K numbers. All right, let's get to some other plants. Again, handful of the organic. Whoop. And also, if you think about it, you're growing in a container, so this doesn't have all the normal soil life and microbiology that you find out in your garden beds. So if you want to use the chemical fertilizers more in these containers, that's perfectly okay. I just want to stress that the chemical fertilizers don't harm you. They don't harm the plants. They're not toxic. They're not poison. Everything is chemicals. But if you don't have to use them, don't use them. Mixed it in. The sage is a taller plant. It's kind of a little bit of a woody shrub. Break it up. Drop it in. And then this spearmint, I'm going to put in spearmint and peppermint, is going to take over this whole pot. But you can just cut it away and let the sage grow up. And this is a nice combination of plants. So that's peppermint. The other one is spearmint. They do really well in these shallow flower boxes, and that will freeze all the way through in my winters. The plant will be perfectly fine. Another thing I want to just add is that says annuals and perennials, granular plant food. You're going to see tomato fertilizer, annual fertilizer, perennial fertilizer, leafy green fertilizers, all kinds of stuff. Don't pay attention to those names. Also, they're going to say things on there like contains biozymes or mycorrhizae or all kinds of different things. Don't pay any attention to that. You just want a basic organic granular fertilizer. We'll talk more about that in future videos. So for the shallow flower box, you know, something that size again, just take a handful, and I just use my hand. Mix it in, smooth it over, dig the hole, and, you know, rough up the roots a little. That'd be a little easier with 2 hands, but you're just coming in around the sides, pressing it in, and you're good to go. Notice how I'm smashing things. That's fine. We're not worried about the leaves, again, because we're in the fall. This is going to establish a great root system. It's going to spread out across here over the next 60 days, and you're going to have a nice, it smells wonderful too now that I crushed up the leaves. It's going to have a nice mass of mint flowers that you can cook with. You can use in drinks. Now, I have lemon balm here, which I recommend, and then mints right over here. These are going to just be filled up in these smaller containers. I'm going to let them overwinter, and they're going to go into different parts of my garden. I hope you give this a try. I want you just to go with the basics. Get these herbs planted. Get the mint planted. Don't worry about being perfect. Container with holes, potting mix, transplants, organic granular fertilizer that I used, and then the water soluble. Mix up the water soluble in your container. Just give them a nice drink, something like that. Get the leaves wet. The foliage actually can absorb some of the water soluble fertilizer, and you're good to go. You're well on your way to building your modern homestead garden. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe, follow the series, and if you're interested, the links for my book are in the video description. Thanks for watching.